officially get started. How to build a successful IB application as an international student. For your speakers today, it's mostly Ruchi, but I will add my 2 cents here and there. She is a head of admissions at Borderless. She got 2 degrees in US universities at University of Rochester as well as Georgetown University. And before Borderless, she has worked at multiple different companies, including Crimson Education, and she has seen a very big variety of different cases and has also guided students for not just United States, but also UK, Europe, Canada, Australia, and a few more. And my name is Veronica. I'm sure many of you have seen my face on social media. I make a lot of videos for you guys. I hope you like them. I personally have studied mechanical engineering at NYU Abu Dhabi, and I've graduated in 2019, after which I actually worked as an engineer. If anyone here wants to do engineering, please let me know. And now I'm one of the founders of Borderless, and I'm also a college counselor, so I work with our students one-on-one. With that being said, I will pass it on to Ruchi, and I will stop sharing so that Ruchi can take over.
Hi everyone. Lovely to meet you. Thank you for being here on this lovely afternoon. And thank you, Veronica, for this introduction. I'm going to make sure that this is actually working for some reason. Yeah. Okay. So sorry. Do you guys mind if I just keep it this way? Because it's being a little glitchy. Okay, great. So I just thought we'll start with a little very basic thing about the US university landscape. And when I say landscape, I don't mean the political landscape. I actually mean what do different universities and the education landscape in the United States, what does that look like? Now, this information, some of you might already know, some of it might be new for some people. If you have questions, like Veronica said, please leave them in the chat. We will try and come back to them later on. So speaking of, now, when it comes to universities in the US, like in most other countries, there are several different types of universities. So you have your public universities, and then you have your private universities. Public universities are the ones that do have government funding. They are generally referred to as state schools. And for most public universities, there are rules about how many students they have to take from within that state. So if we are talking about UC Berkeley, it has to take a certain number of students from the state of California. Private universities generally don't have, these kinds of rules. Now, there could be some small amounts of quota that they need to fill, but generally speaking, private universities don't really have these kinds of rules. Private universities can really run the gamut in America. You can have really large private universities. NYU is one of them. Or you can have really small private universities. University of Rochester, where I did my undergrad, is actually quite small as a university. Within the private university bucket, you have universities which are sometimes referred to as liberal arts colleges, which a lot of international students really kind of target, because liberal arts colleges generally are quite, I'm not going to say generous, but they do offer a good amount of aid for international students. And they are also a lot of times need blind, which means that obviously that your admission decision is not really impacted by the fact that you're asking for financial aid or not. Liberal arts colleges are generally very small. They tend to be suburban or even rural. They might not offer every program because by definition, liberal arts is not going to offer, like, maybe if you want to do something very specific engineering wise, a liberal arts college might not be the place for you. And a lot of these famous big name universities that people talk about, MIT, Stanford, Northwestern, Duke, Vanderbilt, Rice, Johns Hopkins, these are all private universities. Now, none of them are actually liberal arts, so they are quite large. And then, of course, within the private university bucket sits the very famous Ivy League schools. The Ivy Leagues are a group of essentially 8 universities, which are mainly concentrated in the northeastern part of the United States. And what actually it is just a league that was formed back in the day to kind of serve a certain sporting purpose. But now, of course, these have become these very, very, very elite universities. And the Ivy Leagues, I always tell every student, are a high dream for anyone. I can never tell you that looking at your profile, oh, yes, you will definitely get into Harvard. unless you have legacy. And by legacy, I mean if your parents went to Harvard, if your siblings went to Harvard, there is really no guaranteeing you getting into any of these schools. These are generally the types of universities. Now, in terms of how selective they are, it really comes down to a lot of it comes down to the type of university it is, because a larger university obviously will be able to take in more number of students, whereas a smaller university will have far fewer people that they can take in. But that always is not how acceptance rates are determined for international students, because international students kind of sit in a different bucket than, let's say, an American student. So we will look at those factors as well. But the one thing I think a lot of times we as people who might have lived outside the United States, we only hear about certain universities and then we automatically assume that that's where we want to go. The one thing at Borderless that we talk a lot about with our students is the importance of fit. And when I say fit, it actually, college fit is a two-way street. You have to fit the college and the college has to fit you as well. You have to be, maybe you really enjoy a certain type of environment. Maybe you love a quiet study environment. Maybe you don't want to be stuck traveling on a bus from one class to another. Then is a large public university the right place for you? No. Do you want a campus experience? Then in that case, is NYU the right place for you? Because NYU does not really have a campus. So there are several factors that should impact your college fit. And these are things that you should think about as you start building that initial college list, which a lot of you might be doing or might have already done or might be doing as we go ahead. First, of course, is your academic interests. And your interests should match what the college offers. Now, when I say academic interest, really understand the major. Just saying that I want to study economics and I want to study economics at X university is not enough. What type of economics are you looking to study? Are you looking to study quantitative heavy economics? Are you looking to study theoretical economics? So understand each university's major offering. So that's very, very important. The second thing is it's also about, oops, I don't know. Can everyone still see? Okay, there we go. Okay. There's also academic preparation. Now, when we say preparation, what I mean is what kind of time do you have to prepare for the right thing? So if a university right now, let's say they say, oh, well, we need the SAT, do you have time to prepare and get a good score on your SAT? These are things which are quite important, and it should also match your expectations. Like if you're sitting the A-level exam in June, and then the university says that, oh, you need to have a final result by July, you cannot really apply them. So these timelines are also very important, especially for those of you who are in officially now in your application year. So I would say today is the last day of February. March 1st is when I really mark the new application cycle beginning. So I'm saying you are officially there. It's your time now to start thinking about these things. Third thing, of course, like I mentioned, residential preferences. Would you like a large campus, a small campus, a non-campus, a city, a rural preference? These are very important. Remember, you're going to be at this place for 4 years. So think about these factors. For a lot of international students, the other factor to think about also is how far are you from an international airport? America is a massive country. Distances are huge. When I went to Rochester, everyone was like, "Oh, great! It's in the state of New York," and so everyone assumed that it was going to be close to New York City. On a good day, driving from Rochester to New York City takes about 7 hours. So it's not exactly next door. So these are things that you want to consider as you start figuring out what universities are on your list. Especially important when if you are looking at these liberal arts colleges, because like I mentioned, a lot of liberal arts colleges are in smaller towns, so they might not be the best connected in terms of international airports. Then you have your activities match. What have you done? Is it actually fitting with what the university wants? Universities give a lot of indication about what is it that they care about. To give you an example, and the way you find that information, of course, is you have to look at the university's mission statement. Does the university care about research? Does the university care about your community service? Does it care about environmental impact? Does it care about medical sciences. These are all things that, so if you had a very strong background in the environmental sciences, but then you were applying to a university which didn't really care so much about environmental impact, is it necessarily the right fit for you then? Those are things you really need to understand as well. Figure out which universities are the right fit for what you have done and what you want to do as well. That brings us to culture and mission. What is the general culture of the university? What are the values? What is the mission statement? What are the things? What does the community at this university look like? Is it collaborative? Is it very competitive? Is it going to foster international students? Is it going to give you a nice kind of space, or is it going to be quite divided in how it looks at international students? These are things that you should really figure out. The best way to obviously do that is you can look at the university's social media, you can look at the university's websites. A lot of people do rely on Reddit forums as well, because at the end of the day, that is like public opinion. So it's a good way to figure out, is this the right place for me? And finally, perhaps the most important factor, financial fit. What is the tuition? Are they going to give scholarships? Are they going to give financial aid? Does it fit within your budget? These are all conversations that you should definitely be having. And when it comes to finances, please involve your parents. It's very important to involve your parents at this stage. It should not come as a surprise later on that, oh, you got in, but now, oh, surprise, I cannot actually afford to go there. So it's important to build your college list with this in mind. Yes, Veronica is right. Please do not apply to universities you cannot afford. International students, generally speaking, just because you applied and got in, the university is not going to come back and all of a sudden be like, oh, here's financial aid. These are things which you have to really think about. And obviously, one of the main things we do as we build college lists with a lot of our mentorship students is that we really focus on EFC, your expected family contribution. It's a big part of how we build college lists. So these are all factors to consider as you look at your colleges. Okay, moving on. Now, most of you know that there are several common applications that you would use if you were to apply to universities in the US. The most common one, funnily enough, is called the Common Application or the Common App. There are a few universities that are not on the Common App. MIT, for example, has its own application system. Georgetown, until last year, used to have its own application system. And for a lot of other people, the UCs, the University of California schools, have their own application system as well. Those are separate. So you cannot apply to UC Berkeley from the Common App. Now, the Common App is essentially what exactly it says. It's a platform that multiple universities use, where you are expected to provide certain biographical details, your grades, and then there are university-specific things. So generally speaking, what would you be providing in the Common App? You will provide your biographical information. You'll give your academic information. That includes your school grades from grade 9 onwards, plus any kind of standardized tests that you might have taken. For most international students, that would also include a test of English as a foreign language. So either the IELTS, the Duolingo, or the TOEFL. Then you have a whole section on extracurriculars and leadership and honors. So you have space to enter activities and any kind of awards you might have won. This is the place where you start kind of rounding out your profile. And when I say rounding out, you're trying to explain that, hey, here's me academically, but then here is me as a person. Look at me not just as numbers, but here's some stuff that I have done that kind of show what I'm interested in. Then you have your essays and there is one common essay which every university requires you to write, and then based on each university's requirement, you might have to write supplemental essays. Alumni interviews have become increasingly important. These are things that happen after you do your submissions, but these are also opportunities to show your personality, your characteristics. What are you as a person? What do you value? Where do you bring what kind of unique energy do you bring to the university? And finally, there's a whole section which your school provides, your transcripts, your counselor recommendation, your teacher recommendation. These are things that come from the school, because as a high school student, the teachers are really the only people who have known you who are adults. So this is their input on you as a student. Now, the important thing to understand is that all of these factors do come together to make your admission decision. This is what holistic admissions means. Holistic means that no one part by itself is determining your chances at admission into a university. Everything is part of the decision that is made. Now, of course, one bucket is not going to be like taking over, or you cannot replace. Just because you have excellent grades doesn't mean you can have no activities. You cannot replace one bucket for another. And we look at, I think in the next slide, we'll see sort of like how important each different bucket is. Now, when it comes to evaluation, the important thing is this is sort of a rough breakdown of how you are being evaluated. 40% of your admission decision is based on your academics, and 60% is based on other things. And when we talk about 60%, that 30% bucket with your extracurriculars and leadership is your activities, and then you have your essays and your recommendations. So what I mean by that is, again, even if you have all A's and you have aced every exam and you have a 1600 on your SAT, if you don't have good extracurriculars, you are not going to get in. Same thing goes. You might have, you might have some amazing extracurriculars, but if your essays are not good, you're not getting in. At the end of the day, all these three things have to come together to give a good picture. It has to tell a story. Just by doing 15 things doesn't mean that you've done a lot. It all has to kind of tell a good story. So, candidates are evaluated based on demographics. Of course, where do you come from, your location, your family, things like that. Your academics, and that includes the rigor of your course, especially if you're doing an international curriculum. Or if you are not, what kind of strength or how rigorous is your curriculum is very important. Then you have your extracurriculars, your personal qualities, and your recommendations, like we talked about. I want to take a minute to talk about the academics. I know these questions come up a lot from students who are international. They say, is it better to have done A levels or IB over something else? One curriculum is not better than the other. US universities actually have pretty much seen every curriculum that there is out there. So the important thing is to take the hardest classes that are offered within your curriculum and to do well in them. So this is what is very important. Just because you are not doing the IB, or you're not taking A level further physics or further mathematics, doesn't mean that you're not going to be considered. It's important, though, to showcase that you have actually done everything you could to really accelerate your academics. You want to push yourself beyond what is just the norm. So this is very important. I know this comes up very often. We get asked this question all the time. Again, and this is where I would say that probably besides college fit, the one factor that a lot of students mistake is context. Context is very, 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 very important. You as an international student, let's say coming from India, are not in the same bucket as someone who's coming from Massachusetts. Context is important. That is why your background, what kind of school did you go to, what kind of opportunities did you have access to, and did you take advantage of those opportunities is important. Not everybody has the opportunity to take an AP. Okay, you did not have that opportunity. That's fine. You're not being penalized for an opportunity you did not have. But if you had the opportunity and you didn't do it, then that is the thing that you are being really judged on. So it's important to understand fit and context. These are very important things when you build your college list to figure out. Okay, moving on. Let's talk a little bit about, okay. Now, I think we touched upon this a little bit, but let's go back to a little bit more about academics. First thing, bad grades cannot be replaced. Okay, it is important to understand that because you are doing an excellent extracurricular, but you have a C somewhere, you cannot offset these things. Everything is coming as a whole picture. They're not going to be like, oh, great, and then they're going to disregard that C grade. When it comes to academics, this, like we talked about, curricular rigor, take the difficult classes, show that you are pushing yourself beyond what was being given to you. If you have maths and advanced math in your school, take advanced math if you can. to show that you are going to be ready to take college level coursework. Second, next is grades and improvement. Let's say you got a C, okay? The important thing is what happens after you got the C. Did you continue to try and get your grade up? So that trajectory, that symbol that we've put there, that arrow really needs to go up. You know, you really want to show a progression towards the higher grades as you are going above. So you are not, if you had a C, that's fine, but you don't need to kind of, there should not be a lot of ups and downs in your academics. You ideally want to show something which is kind of moving forward and moving up. An upward trajectory is important. The third piece of the puzzle, which a lot of people are now kind of, we are still in that phase where should I take the SAT? Should I not take the SAT? I would say for people who are, you are starting at a time when you have the opportunity to take the SAT. Trust me, more and more universities are going to keep reinstating the SAT. You will see those announcements coming out in over the next couple of months. I would suggest, especially if you are not in an international curriculum, you should aim to take the SAT because that's a way to showcase that fact that you are actually able to handle a certain type of testing. So make time, take your standardized test. You might not have to take the AP, that's okay. But definitely try and take the SAT. And yes, you will all need to take some form of English language testing, even if you are studying in an English language school. I have seen American students studying at boarding schools in the UK being asked for English language testing requirements. So make your life easier, take the test, IELTS, either TOEFL, Duolingo, whichever one it is. But if you are taking the Duolingo, please check that the university actually accepts it. Not every university accepts the Duolingo. Okay? So these are things that are important. Now, speaking of grades, what are the higher, like high level universities expecting in terms of your grades? If you look at the GPA, which is usually like a grade point average, is scored out of 4 points. If you have a school which has GPA, then if you're aiming for Ivy League schools, your GPA needs to be 3.8. In fact, I think the average GPA at Harvard is like 3.9 sometimes. Your IB score has to be more than 40 out of a 45. And if you're taking the A levels, you need to have at least one A star and the other two should be an A and A. You basically need to show that you are at the top of your class academically. Here are some average SAT scores from last year. Now you see that all Ivy Leagues were not test required yet, but a lot of them were. And these are the average SAT scores that people reported. 1550 was the average SAT score reported at Harvard. Now, the good thing is, when a school becomes test required, the average SAT score generally tends to come down a little bit. Because now everyone has to submit. Even the person who got an 1100 has to submit that SAT score. The problem is when schools are test optional or test flexible, that's when the average SAT score is inflated because only those who have higher scores have reported it. But regardless, you can see for the schools that required it or did not require it, it is still sitting somewhere around the 1540 mark for an Ivy League school. And trust me, if the Ivy Leagues are at this level, MIT, Stanford, Rice, Johns Hopkins, Duke, Carnegie Mellon, Northwestern, University of Chicago, all of these will be in the same kind of range. We will just one more thing about the SAT I'll talk about is something called super score. It really depends. Every university is different when it comes to a super score. What I mean by super score is if you've taken the test multiple times, some universities allow you to report your best score separately. You might have scored very high in your English in attempt 1 and math in attempt 3. You can combine the two and report your highest score. Some universities don't allow that. You only are allowed to report one sitting. And Stanford famously requires you to report every sitting you take. If you've taken the SAT 5 times, you have to report all 5 scores. Stanford is famous for that. So that's about the SAT. Okay, moving on. That's your academics. Now let's talk about extracurriculars, which are generally things which a lot of people have questions about, because this is the one area which is not very standardized. Now, when it comes to the Common App, there is an activity list where you can list up to 10 activities, and you have a space to list 5 awards or honors. So that's 10 plus 5, 15. If you apply to the UC schools, there is space to add 20 activities. So what does this actually tell you? This tells you that the universities are looking for some level of extracurricular involvement over the course of 4 years of high school. You don't need to fill all 10 slots, but you definitely need to have at least 6. Another thing is, the way you are describing your activity, it's very limited space. So you really want to be able to showcase impact very quickly. You want to talk about the type of activity it was, and the actual listing on the form requires you to say how many hours in a week you did a certain activity, plus how many weeks in a year you spent on it. What these are very important for is actually figuring out how deep did you go into an activity. Again and again, I will tell you that something which you have done consistently for 2 years is better than something you might have done only for 2 weeks, even though it might sound more impressive. An internship at PwC for 1 week, as opposed to working on your school's ecology club for 4 years, this club is going to be much more impressive, because time commitment, the fact that you were committed to doing something over a couple of years, is very important. So depth is very important. Instead of just thinking about, oh, I need to have 10 activities, I need to fill everything in. Yeah. Now, what does a well-developed profile look like, especially if you're looking to apply for high-level universities? You want to show some kind of intellectual curiosity outside of the classroom. This is usually quite hard for a lot of IB students or A-level students to do, because you're already might be doing, like, your CAS papers and your extended essays and things like that. But if you are applying for some kind of very high level program, demonstrating intellectual curiosity through a research paper, even if with a mentor, is really, it looks really good. Leadership is very important. And when I say leadership, it can mean that either you saw a gap in your school and you started a club, or you launched a company or something like that. The second thing is, maybe you joined a club in grade 9, and by grade 11, you became the leader of that club. Maybe there's a history club you joined, you were interested, and then you kind of took leadership of something. That is also very impressive. So again, consistency, and it also shows that you care about something. Positive impact. Now, the most misunderstood part, I think, of the activities for a lot of international students is the community service part. I think when we think of community service, a lot of people think, oh, it means that collecting blankets and donating somewhere. That is also good. In a US context, what community service really means is, how have you impacted the community that you come from? Your community can be your school, your neighborhood, your city. What did you do that actually impacted these groups in a positive way? So this impact is very important. It's not just about, oh, I donated blankets, or I collected food and I gave it here. It's also about, what did you do to make a longer lasting impact? So these are all things that you want to consider. Finally, of course, there are non-school affiliated activities, your internships, your summer programs. Again, going back to context is very important here. Not everyone can afford to do a summer program, and that's okay. You might not have done a summer program. Not everybody goes to Harvard to do a summer program. But what have you done instead is very important. So pick activities that actually relate to your chosen major as well. If you're planning on majoring in English literature, you need to have some form of activity where you are showcasing your writing, right? If you're going to say, I'm interested in majoring in environmental engineering, you need to have an activity where you are actually doing something related to the environment. These are important. So having a mix of activities is important. You need to have some leadership, you need to have some relevance, you need to have some discovery, you need to have some curiosity. It's a mix of everything. It's not just, oh, let me just do everything that comes my way and I'm going to throw it on the form and just hope for the best. That usually doesn't work very well. Now, moving on from the activities and the academics, the third part of the form, and my favorite part of the form, is your essay. I think it is probably the coolest thing about the US application system. Again, I don't know how long the process will stay the same. We are in the age of AI after all. Now, there are 7 prompts. I believe I just saw today that Common App is not changing its prompts this year as well. So those of you who are applying this year, you still have the same 7 prompts that have been going on for the last couple of years. You pick one prompt and you have to write an essay of a maximum of 650 words. There is a lot of information out there. What is a good essay? What is a bad essay? A good essay is something that when I read it, I'm able to picture you in your setting. As an admissions officer, I have no context of where you're coming from. The essay is your place to tell me who you are in your own setting. Do you come from a small town? Do you come from a large city? There's several things that you should try and hit upon in your essay. Now, we do run a separate essay webinar, and we will be running it closer to, when we do come to that time of the application cycle. And we really do try and address a lot more about the essay in that. So if you guys are interested, please do sign up for that whenever we do come to that. But the idea is the essay is the one place where you are really able to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And not in like, you don't have to stand out like, oh, look at me, I achieved all A's. You need to really show that you're human. That's really the main thing. Second thing, as you can see, we have some quotes from admissions officers who actually who are telling us what they are really expecting from you in your essay. The main thing is try and talk about your personal traits, your characteristics. Don't make it's not a list of achievements. It's not a resume. It's not just like I did this and then I did this and then the important thing is reflection. What did you feel or what did you learn from doing something is very important. Reflection is important. You need to show, don't tell. If you're going to tell me that I was very curious, give me an example. Show me that you were curious. Don't just tell me you're curious. I don't know. I have no way of knowing if you're lying or if you're not. And third, while we are on the topic of essays, don't generate your entire essay using AI. I don't care what AI tool you are using, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. I'm sure all of you know way more about this than I do. I'm much older than the rest of you. I can tell you, I read enough essays every year. And if I can tell an essay is AI generated, the admissions officer can tell it's AI generated. Try and be unique. Veronica and I do this every cycle where we just look at an essay and we're like, oh, AI generated. And the minute we think it's AI generated, we are not interested in reading further. So you have lost the opportunity to really impress someone and tell your own story. I've worked with students who are academically very brilliant, where we actually would not touch too much of their English because the idea is that you want to just showcase them for who they are. You don't want to everybody cannot sound like ChatGPT. Second, universities are smart. They might not need an AI detector tool and things like that, but they are also changing their approach. To give you an example, the University of Michigan has an honors program. And this year, students who are applying for the honors program have been told, been given a prompt, and they've said, use AI to generate an essay for the prompt, and then you as a student have to critique what the AI has written. So, try and be original. At some point, you will have to critique what AI is writing. Might as well not get lost in this whole process. Try and stick to yourself. Tell your stories. So, the essay, again, that's your Common App personal statement. And then depending on the university, you might have supplemental essays to write. Now, again, this is where every university is different. Drexel, until last year, had no supplemental essays. Stanford has 8. 8 supplemental essays besides this one. So you're going to be doing 9 pieces of writing if you're going to apply to Stanford, right? So that is your essays. I could go on and on about essays. Now, the most common question that a lot of people ask is, how is my application being judged? What actually happens once I click that submit button? What happens inside an admissions office? Now, there are several things, there is really a lot of things that we can talk about, but the way a lot of times most universities are reviewing applications is that universities either review applications based on geography or based on major. So everybody who applies from the UAE is going to go to one or two couple readers, and they will all be looking at only applications from this region. That is one way of reading. Another way is if you have all applied, everybody who applies for mechanical engineering is going to be read in one group. Everybody who's applying for something else is being read separately. Purdue reads by major. A lot of other universities, Carnegie Mellon reads by region. Again, it differs university to university. There is statistical advantage if you are applying in the early rounds. It can be early decision or early action, only reason being that there are fewer people. So the chances of someone reading your application and you getting a result faster is there. So that is your advantage of applying early. Now, once you have, these people have read, the first round of reading has happened, the applications are kind of divided. If I'm reading 100 applications, I'm going to say, okay, I like these 30 applications, and I'll go into the next round where I'm going to be talking about why these 30 students need to be admitted to this university. These are meetings where everybody from so if the university has read by geography, the person from the UAE, person from India, person from Spain, they're all coming into the room together, and you are lobbying, the application officer, the admissions officer is lobbying to say this student is good and this student is not. This is where your essay really comes in handy. What I mean by that is your essay becomes the place where you can really market yourself so that the admissions officer can take this and say, hey, look at this student, give them the words to market you. They don't know you, right? So, sorry, I'm just going to, yeah. Now, you are evaluated as a person. You are not being evaluated on other things. You are wholly there. Every application has to be looked at. So it's not like they're just going to go over some parts and then forget the parts. Everything is looked at. Now, what is usually the debate about in these meetings? There is benchmarking. So you have committee discussion enables the AOs to kind of understand, like, what is it that the class is going to look like? Every year, every university kind of has a picture of what kind of students they want to take in. When I say picture, they'll say, okay, well, this is the kind of class makeup we want to have, right? So they have a picture and they have to try and fit people into those slots. So you'll see that some years, some countries get a lot more representation at some universities. It's because the university is calibrating itself. Some years you'll see a lot of students are being, and if you come from a large country like India, no, this doesn't, India and China are separate. There's just too many people to recalibrate with. I'm talking about smaller countries, like the UAE is famous for that. And again, I say the UAE because I live here, so this is what I see. The AO will advocate for applicants from their region. So it's not like they're going to be like, oh, this person is great, I'm going to lower the bar. But the idea is that if they like you, they're going to bat for you, right? So make it easier for them to, to sell you. Then a group decision will then determine, okay, who gets in. And generally speaking, the person who has kind of taken your application to that round is not going to be in the room when this decision is made. There are several, rungs to an admissions officer as well, several levels. So the one thing I will say is this is all just based on what we know. There is no official document out there being put by any university that says this is how we are judging admissions. But this is just a best estimate based on what Veronica and I have seen over the years and with the experience that we have, the amount of documents we study, the common data sets that we look at, the number of former admissions officers that we listen to and meet. This is all based on that information. Now, reality of top admissions is acceptance rates are low, and every year more and more and more students are applying. The Common App has made it easy for people to apply to a lot of schools. It's very easy to just add universities to your list and then send out these applications. So just give me 1 second. So it's not just the grades that is separating the students who are getting in. It is also your planning, your strategy, your storytelling, your hard work. All of these factors do play a part. Don't just think that, okay, just because the acceptance rate is low and I have amazing grades, I will make it. There is everything matters. Everything that we've just talked about, all of these factors are very, very important. Like I said, you cannot make up for an like a gap in one space by doing a lot more in the other. These are very important things to understand and remember. Okay, I think is that
Yes, I will take over. There are a couple of questions I was trying to answer as we go, but we can take the rest after we do a little commercial break and we talk about our personalized mentorship program that I'm sure a lot of you guys will find useful. Many of you guys know that we have the app, we have the admission stories, we have the social media, but we also do have the mentorship because this is how we get to work with students one-on-one and make a very big impact on their application journeys. We have three mentors, two of them you have met for now, and we also have Ali, who is a graduate of UPenn. He was a mentor at Education USA, so he's very experienced, and he's currently head of engineering at Borderless, and also he loves mentoring, and he keeps saying that his dream job would be to be a teacher and to help young people realize their full potential, which is exactly what he wants to do with you guys. What we do is we cover the entire application process from profile building to narrative building to execution. We start working with people in either grade 10 or grade 11, depending on where you are. We might have to compress things a little bit, but if you're now in grade 11 and you're applying in 26, 27 cycle, it is not too late to join. In fact, we want you to join today so that we can get started with you. In stage one, we really focus on figuring out your interests. We are going to help you with a passion project. If you want to do one, you don't have to, but it's definitely a very good addition to your profile. We help you plan the summer, academic courses, and everything else to make sure that you have all the right components that Ruchi has been talking about today. Stage two, which for the current cycle will start around end of spring to summer, is where we're trying to build your narrative. We're saying, okay, you've done all these amazing things, you have all these achievements and activities. Now, what is the story? How can we present you as a unique and interesting and special applicant that will not blend with hundreds of other people who have also done a lot of activities and have a lot of achievements? That narrative, these connections in between your interests, this unique story is what will actually get you into college. And stage three, which happens in the fall, is the actual execution, which means the actual application. We help you with letters of recommendation. We, of course, help you with essays, which is a huge, huge part of our mentorship. We help you prepare and submit documents that can be very confusing. We even help people with CSS profile, finances, anything that you would need. We've seen it, we've done it, and we can definitely help you with it. When it comes to the actual structure of the mentorship, we try to be there for you as much as possible. We have unlimited essay reviews. You know, for some people, they might need only 3 drafts. For some people, they might need 15 drafts. We're here with you until you have the best possible essay. We will meet with you bi-weekly for 1 hour, which means once in 2 weeks. You're going to jump on a call with us, and then we can answer all of your questions. We discuss strategy, and later in the year, we will use this time for a lot of essay brainstorming. In between the meetings, we still know that you might need help, so you will be connected to us on WhatsApp group, and you can ask any question at any time, and one of us will always, always, always reply to you within 1 day. We will also have a dashboard. We currently use Notion, but we are moving to our new in-house platform next week, which no one has seen yet. But this will be the place for you to store all your application components and to also be able to communicate with your mentors. If you need any connections, of course, within our networks, we don't know presidents or other people, but whatever we can do, we're always really happy to connect you, to help you get an internship, to help you promote your projects. And yeah, as the last point says, tech and media support. As you guys know, we have engineers on the team. I do a lot of social media. Ruchi does a lot of writing and research. And so whatever support you need that's beyond pure admissions, we are also here to help. And in fact, this is personally my favorite part, is helping people execute their passion projects. because I think this is the way to make college application fun. Because essays, it's hard. I'm not gonna lie, I don't like it. But when you have to execute on an idea that you had in your head for 2 months and you actually see it come to life, I think this is the best part. And I'm really, really excited to help you guys execute these projects. Why should you work with us? There are many, many, many consultancies. I know them. I can even give you the names. They exist in different countries, they exist internationally. So many companies, and many of them are decent. Many are very scammy, and every other person who comes to us is like, oh, I got scammed, or my mentor is terrible. Here's why we are good. Number one, there are VR mentors with real experience. As Ruchi was mentioning, she worked in many different companies. I've been mentoring for almost 10 years. Ali has been at Education USA. We're not freshmen in college who just got accepted and who have only ever worked with one student. We've done it many, many times for multiple years. We provide very personalized support. So we have very, very small group of people that we work with. Because if you just need cookie cutter advice, go to our app. It's free. We do not need your money if you want genuine strategies. That is not why we're here for. Then we have very data-driven approach, which again comes from the fact that we are a very technical team. We have data of all common data sets of all stories. We're able to collect data on universities with our in-house technology. So when we recommend you colleges or when we look for summer programs for you, we know a lot more than any one person would, because again, we are leveraging AI and technical capabilities of Cloud Code and a bunch of other terms that I won't throw at you. But we as a company know a lot more than any single counselor could ever do because it's tech. And tech is the future. I very much will die on that hill. And the last, and I think very, very important point is that we support multiple countries, which I think is increasingly important for the current cycle because it's very unstable. A lot of you guys have heard about funding cuts, visa difficulties. We don't know what's going to happen, and the only way to protect yourself is to have more options. And Vucci has guided students to the UK, to Canada, to multiple European countries, to Singapore. I've also worked with people who are applying to Asia. I personally live in Japan, so if that's something you want to do, we can help you. And our strength is that we can help you apply to multiple countries. And we've seen, again, all of these admission processes, and we can make sure that you're not missing anything and that you're being very strategic about what your options are. So if you are convinced and if you want to work with us, please scan this QR code, which will direct you to our WhatsApp, and we would love to talk with you. We have different programs. We have very comprehensive support. We have hourly packages. We have individual help. We try to cover a different range of needs and budgets. Our programs are paid, that I will say openly right now, because it is a lot of time of individual counselors. Our app is free, mentorship is paid. This is how we see it. But again, we have different options. So please scan this if you're interested, and one of our teammates will talk to you. We're happy to meet with you. We're happy to meet with your parents. We're happy to answer any questions. And we would definitely love to work with you. And one thing I will also say is that we are trying to close all of our spots in March. Because again, if you come to us in August and it turns out that your project is misaligned with your major or you didn't do anything in the summer, it's very difficult for us to help you just because we don't have the time. And that is something that even if you give me $1 million, I cannot reverse time and give you that summer that you have missed. Which is why I will be very, very, very persistent. If you need help, please come now. Another thing that we do is we do not lower prices if you come later. Our prices are, at least the comprehensive package is set per cycle. So if you come now and you get all the help in March, it's going to be the same than if you come in October and we're rushing and it's just very, very stressful for everyone. Okay? So please don't procrastinate. Get in touch with us. We will talk to you. We would love to help you out. With that being said, let's get into questions. Ruchi, how do you want to do this?
I answered a few. I answered a
Mm-hmm.
few. I think there's just someone just posted a question. Is taking the SATs in mid-September too late? No. Um, you are fine. Your early decision application will be due November 1st. So by then you will have your SAT score. Late in the sense that if you don't get the desired score, you might not, even if you retake it, let's say you retake it, you can resubmit a new score as well. But ideally, I prefer if you submit everything at once instead of having bits and pieces of the application kind of left over, so to speak, for later. So it's not late, but it's if you're planning on saying, okay, well, I really don't have time to do a new one, that's the challenge. Um, if you show different transcripts, no, absolutely not. You can have 4 different transcripts from 4 different school years. There is no harm in that. There is space to add multiple schools in for your high school space. Uh, Aid or scholarships at the UCs as an international student is aid, no. Very limited scholarship. But again, chances are very, very slim just because, again, it's a public school, so they have to prioritize their own students.
Yeah, I'd like to
Um,
maybe explain how this works because I notice some
yes.
people get really angry. So what happens is that these public universities are funded by taxpayers of that particular state. And just like you guys wouldn't want your tax money to go to fund tuition of a foreigner, they also don't want the taxpayers' money to go to fund your education. That's the logic. I think it makes sense. Obviously, we all wish we had more funding, but that is the situation, which is why if you see a public school or if you see state in the name of the school, it's very, very unlikely that you can get any aid. That being said, check with your own government. Some governments do have government scholarships if you get into like top schools. I recently met, when I was in the United States in December, I met a student at UC Berkeley, and she got like a scholarship from Kazakhstan. So Berkeley didn't give her anything, but her government did. So again, it's pretty rare, but if you are a top achieving student, there are definitely options to find funding for you.
There are several questions where people have asked me about like, what can I do? It's very hard for us to kind of give you that answer just generically. We have to see your entire profile plus where you want to apply, and that's really. So I will say that if you are asking very specific things, it's better to kind of get in touch with us and do it that way. We really cannot give you personalized information. Interviews for Ivy Leagues are not obligatory, but if you are given the opportunity to schedule an interview, you definitely should because the interviews are generally done online and you can really showcase a lot. Now, the thing is, interviews are done by alumni; they are not done by active admissions officers generally. So there is what you are really being tested on, or what you are really trying to do there is really give like a more personality based interview rather than more knowledge based interview. But yes, I would say if you have the opportunity, definitely take it. You will get an email once you submit. You don't really have to do anything until you get that email. Um, is there any particular difference between the MIT app and yes, the MIT app is difficult. I mean, there's a reason MIT is hard to get into. There are some things that are going to be very similar, but then there are going to be a lot of other things. MIT does require a lot more information on your extracurriculars, unlike the Common App. Um, uh, okay, what else? In terms of art portfolios, yes, in what Veronica said, yeah, we do actually work with students who are applying for a variety of things. We've had students applying for fine arts programs, so we can do that. Again, Sadia, I see same again. It's very hard for me to give you specific things until I see the rest of your profile.
Yeah, and I want people to stop hunting for ideas in that way. Like I can tell you now, like I can give you an app example, I can give you an example of a campaign, but you won't do it because it's not yours and you're not interested and it's not aligned with your skills, right? So co coming up with a passion project is a long process that has to be very authentic to you because if I tell you, hey, you should make a marketplace that connects young people to therapists, but you can't code, that wouldn't make any sense, right? So that's why we need to meet with you, we need to mentor you, and then we need to understand your skill set, your interests, your passions, your environment, your network, your time, And this is when we can get to an idea that will also be a lot more interesting than just an app because like I know a lot of people want to do blog or they want to do an app or they want to do some kind of fundraising, but there's a lot more really interesting ideas that you definitely have. You just need to dig deeper.
Um, for the supplemental essays, it really depends. Some universities will give you options. For example, Emory gives you options and you have to write one or two out of the five. Some universities don't give you any options. Stanford does not give you any options. You have to write all eight. So every university is different. Generally speaking, you should think of it as on average, you're going to be writing about 3 supplementary essays per university. Sometimes, and each essay is roughly around 200 to 250 words. Sometimes you'll have just one long supplementary essay. But University of Wisconsin-Madison has a 650-word supplementary essay. Sometimes you'll have a shorter one, but that is roughly the average that you are really looking at. What else? How do universities choose between two qualified applicants from the same country with the same level of ECs and GPA? But if you're choosing different majors, you are in two different categories. You are not competing against each other. It really would come down to if you were all applying for the same thing. That's why if you see elite international schools, the school counselor will strategize in a way so that no more than 2 to 3 students from each class applies for the same program at the same university. Because otherwise you are essentially eating each other out. You are only competing with your students. So if you're applying for different majors, it doesn't really matter. Then what else is there? Oh, Boston College. Yeah, no aid, sorry. Yeah, Rustam, very good question. Excellent question, I have to say. And yes, generic, but very important. What would you say to students who maybe don't know their passion yet, who perform well in every subject, but haven't really found the one? There are several things that we do, and as part of the mentorship, we do have like a process by which we do try to kind of hone in, not maybe on the one interest, but at least kind of give your profile a direction. Now, I will tell you that there is this kind of wild card way of doing things where you can actually showcase your lack of specific interest also as like a strength. That is a way of doing things as well. If you are going to go down that route, please take the help of a counselor. Because you have to be very careful. That line of being lost versus being, I don't know, curious is very, very fine. So it can be done. I have worked on with students who've done it before, and it has worked very well. And there are universities that actually want students like this as well. But you have to really figure those universities out. Any alternative outside the US we should look into specifically for a dual degree? Ahmad, we actually have several, I think Veronica has done interview or informations like this on our social media where we talk about like, oh, if you're interested in Harvard in the US, look at X university outside the US as well. You can check out some of those options.
Yeah, definitely. And generally, please do look outside the United States. Like, you will be surprised how amazing some of the options can be. And this is coming from people who made a living by helping people get into US. So trust me, this advice is very unbiased. Many great options. And please look into Asia. As someone who's living in Japan, I feel like Asia is underlooked. There's
Yeah,
many great
for
programs in
sure.
English. There's good funding, good job options. It's so safe. So
Yeah.
please keep your options open.
Um, off the top of my head, Rustam, I would say universities that love spread, actually, in a way, NYU. NYU loves spread. Um, I can't think of any other ones, but like I said, it's a smart move if you're doing it right. But I rarely see it done right. Do Yale and Harvard have aid? Yes, they do. But again, it's Yale and it's Harvard. um, what else was it? Which Ivy League is best to study law/international relations? Ivy Leagues are great at everything. If you're specifically looking at law or IR, I would probably look beyond the Ivy Leagues sometimes because you really want to be in a place where you can actually do some kind of internship. And again, I'm not saying this because I went to Georgetown. There really is nothing like Georgetown if you're interested in international relations. I would probably put it above the Ivy Leagues in terms of. So again, this is where what I mean by fit is very important. What is it that you really want to do? Uh, okay, and what about the Coalition app? So the Coalition app also that's a good question. The Coalition app is quite similar to the Common app. The only kind of slight difference might be that there are fewer universities that accept the Coalition app over the Common app. That's really one of the main differences. The components of a Coalition app do remain quite similar to the Common app as well. There might not be as much writing, but otherwise it's quite similar. Uh, Schools outside the US where public high schools don't have counselors, we have worked with school students from everywhere. We have worked with students who've not even gone to English language schools, and we have figured out ways to find someone who is going to be your counselor at that school. It can be another teacher, it can be, there are ways to do this.
Yeah, but I want to say this is very good point for everybody. It is your job to find that person. A lot of people, they kind of delay the decision, and then in September they come to us. They're like, "Oh my God, nobody wants to do it for me. They don't get it." And I want you to take ownership of the whole process. Like, if you know that your teachers don't speak English, if you know you don't have a counselor, yes, you can complain, but also who's going to fix it? It's only your job. So I really, really, really want you to be very proactive and put yourself in the mind of that person. Like, teachers in public schools are not paid well. They don't need extra work. They will only do it because they care for you and they really want you to succeed. So be nice. Tell them early, be like, hey, I understand this is difficult. You might get confused, but my dream is to go to the United States and I cannot apply without your recommendation letter, your transcript, your school profile, and really help them through the process. Please don't shift that responsibility onto other people because at the end of the day, it is your application. And I want you to have that attitude towards anything. And I know it's very hard to be an international student. I know you don't have activities, you don't have formal opportunities, you don't have as much funding. Yes, but after working with people for so many years, trust me, I've seen cases where people have pulled the impossible. People had no internet and had to like go to a different city to have better internet connection to have a session with me. That has happened. So after that, I'm like, if you go to school, if you have computer internet, you can do things. You are in control. So please, please, please take ownership, even though you're very young.
Yeah, I would really like to add, please don't assume that you are some kind of, don't write about, oh, how difficult your life was. Um, because like Veronica said, if you think things are bad, the university admissions have seen cases which are even harder. So I've seen students who've come from the interiors of New Zealand where there were no schools and still get into Harvard. So trust me, a lot of times this is just a matter of perspective.
I think that's a good note to wrap up the webinar. I hope we took all the questions. Feel free to drop your link. Someone asked about LinkedIn. I think that's a good place for you guys to network. So I will be wrapping up. So you have like 10 seconds to paste your link. But thank you so much, Ruchi, for sharing all this information. And thank you guys for staying with us. I noticed that no one dropped out. So I'm sure that you guys found it valuable, which is amazing. The recording will be shared, and I definitely encourage you to keep going back to it either now or as you go through this process and as some of these things start becoming more real and more relevant. We will definitely be doing more webinars. We plan to do a bunch on extracurriculars and actually show you guys how to launch projects and how to show initiative. We will definitely do a lot more on essays because that alone I feel like could be a 10-hour session. So we'll do our best. So please stay in touch with our social media. I would say Instagram is probably the best way to be updated on the news of everything that is happening. And if you need help, please reach out. We would love to work with you. As I mentioned, we do have different options for different tiers of what is possible for you. So this is your last chance to scan the QR code. I am seeing a lot of messages, so one of our team members will get back to you. Alrighty, that will be it for today. Thank you guys so much. I'm sure you will have an amazing application season. Just keep working hard, stay positive, and be ambitious. I know we're like, oh, Harvard is hard. Like, it's hard, but it's possible. And so it's a very fine balance between being ambitious and also being realistic, and it doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. So stay positive, stay ambitious, and stay in control of your application. Ownership. I think that's my word of the day, and agency. All right. Okay, I'm gonna be closing the call. Thank you guys so much again. Bye. Have a good
Bye
evening.
bye.